Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
It's customary for us to go around the room and say our names to introduce ourselves to everyone. Before we do that, I'd like to ask if there's anyone here for the first time or returning after a long absence. Returning after an absence.
Returning after a long.
Ken, first time.
Returning after a while.
Oh, returning? Yes.
I'm Colin. I've never been here.
Colin?
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, please extend yourselves to the gentleman at social time. Welcome. So we'll go around the room now and say our names, and maybe give yourself an extra breath in between people to hear our names. I'll start. I'm Len.
Mark. My name is Osvaldo.
Rick. I'm Jack. I'm David.
My name is Paul. I'm Shanta.
I'm Clint. I'm Amos.
My name is Jared.
I'm Jack.
My name is Michael.
David.
Peter. My name is Mark.
My name is Don.
John.
My name is Lee.
Will.
Jose?
My name is Tatuan.
Hal. My name is Jeff.
I'm Hal.
Ken.
Jim.
My name is Ray.
My name is Roy.
My name is David.
Oh, I'm Colin. Hi.
I'm Mark.
I'm Steve.
Diana.
I'm Kaleo.
Kevin.
Joe.
It's my pleasure to introduce who many of you know, Joe Goode, who is the artistic director of the Joe Goode Performance Group and a professor in the Department of Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies at UC Berkeley. He has had a meditation practice since 1979 and has incorporated Buddhist principles and meditation practices into his choreographic works. His work blends theater, dance, spoken word, and focuses on fallibility, the imperfection of being human. Goode believes that the creative impulse is a step toward alleviation of suffering. He teaches workshops for people interested in unearthing the impulse called Writing from the Body, Start Simple, and Finding the Bones. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Len. Jim Stewart, who you all know, asked me to talk about the effects of Buddhist practice on my art-making practice. I gave a similar talk at the Hartford Street Zen Center a while ago, and Jim was like, well, why are you doing it over there and not doing it over here? And I said, well, they asked me. So I will pretty much give a similar talk, but I do want to say that when I talk about art making, for me it's choreography, but it could be gardening or making a cake or, building a fence or whatever artistic thing that you do, then I know you all do it. A few years ago I participated in a project called Awake, which was about Buddhist art in America, although we had a lot of visiting artists from Japan and Poland and all over the world. And that was really the first time that I considered making public my Buddhist influences. I don't think of myself as a Buddhist scholar. I know there are people in this room who have, much more immersed in the scholarship than I am. I'm Buddhist light, but the talks that I've heard and the books that I've read have deeply influenced my art practice, and hopefully I'll be able to explain that. So some of this I'm going to read. You see my 17-year-old niece printed this out for me. She's like, he's old. He needs big writing. So it's a lot of pages, but it's very brief. There is a great paradox in art making. The paradox is that for art to be strong and inhabited, the artist must risk being revealed. You can't hold back. You have to be brave. And you have to stand on the precipice of what's scary for you. This is what I believe. You have to ask yourself the hard questions, and in doing so, you get kind of naked. Particularly the performing artist. You have your body, your voice, your personality on the line. And you're revealing your fragile humanity, hopefully, so that the audience can see their own kind of broken, imperfect selves through you and kind of ruminate. But it's a very vulnerable place to be. And there's one big problem with it, is it's all about you. Your ego is all tied up in what you're offering. Because it's you, it's your wisdom, it's your beauty, it's your skill, it's your insight that's being placed in front of people. And they can either love it or they can dismiss it and not feel connected to it. So a lot of artists feel they're only as good or as worthy as their last artistic creation. Was it well received? Did the critics love me? Will I win another award for excellence? Well, you can see the dukkha and the suffering that's written all over that. And you also, as an artist, you can become a little bit infantilized in that you're always looking for approval, to be loved, to be accepted, to be celebrated. So that's the ego side of art making. And it's pretty hard to get away from that. It's a very, very strong impulse, very automatic. I also think it's a little bit cultural. In our culture, we view the art experience as very evaluative. So we're always looking for virtuosity, and we want to put an artist kind of up on a pedestal because of their enormous skills, kind of separate from us, which is a sort of a safer place to have them. They're a little more distant. And in a way, they don't have to get in our business quite so much, or they can just be spectacular. We want artists to be monolithic, to be unassailably great, and to wow us. But I feel like there's an othering that happens there, again, in Western culture, where we don't feel that we're participating or in that art with them necessarily. We're just kind of objective viewers, evaluators. Loved it, hated it. I also think there's something about magic. We want magic to happen. Magic that's exotic and comes from some other place that we don't understand and maybe we don't want to understand. So this perpetuates the artist as pleaser, in a way. He or she is trying to be magical, and phenomenal and monolithic. And that's tiresome, as you can imagine. And I did that for a long, long time. And I think I've told this story here before, but a few years ago, I won this big award, a Guggenheim Fellowship. It's a big deal. It's a culmination of many things that you do in your career, and you get this thing. And the minute that I got it, I had been thinking about it for a long time, I'll admit. Like, oh, I'm going to get that someday. I finally got it, and I immediately started thinking about, why don't I have a MacArthur Fellowship? Like, God, what's wrong, people? So there's this kind of striving, this kind of desire to please that's just crazy. And it started to make me crazy. And I think, to get to the other side of the paradox, when I started to really ask myself, well, why do this if it's just for the striving, and that's so stressful and so full of suffering? What other way could I possibly do it? And so I started thinking about the beauty, the thing that I love, which is being immersed in the task, in the moment, in the thing that you're working on, where you really feel no sense of self. You can actually get lost inside of this thing, and I do it. I'm lucky enough to do it with other people. So there's also a community of us who are kind of lost together in a task, which is really an amazing thing. To place one's full concentration outside of the self, on a sound or a movement or a brush stroke or whatever it is that you do, this is when art making becomes a practice, not unlike meditation. And a lot of the same tools really are employed, because there's a lot of noise and a lot of things that want to come in and disturb that immersion, that sense of concentration, and you just gently sort of ask them to, step aside, and you acknowledge them, you take them in, you hold them, you feel friendly towards them, hopefully, and then you let them drift away, so you can go back into your thing. And I think the thing that, as I went further and further into this way of thinking, I realized that because you're in a moment of presence with the task, you have to be compassionate. You have to use a kind of metta with yourself, particularly when the other thoughts come in, and when the ego thoughts come in. And that's the hardest thing for an artist, I think, especially a professional artist, which I have that dubious title, is it good? Is it going to sell tickets? Does anybody care? Those questions just want to come up. Right at the first day of a rehearsal, you don't even know what you're doing yet, and you're already stressing out about those things. And so it's really important to be able to say, gee, I'm really sympathetic with you, Joe, that you're thinking about that. And I even love you a little bit, that you have to wrangle with that. But, it's really not important yet. Let's delay that for a while, and let's do the thing. And I think the other thing that I want to say about that is, when I started approaching my own art making that way, I actually felt like I was practicing life skills. I was practicing being more skillful in my life, and allowing myself to flounder and have ego arise and not succumb to it totally. There's a great the teacher Pema Chodron, who I love. She has a chapter in one of her books where she talks about how we undo our own happiness by setting benchmarks and having expectations of something that's finished or perfect or happy, arrived, And she asserts that we are always in a state of becoming, but we never, in fact, become. And the phrase that she uses that I just love is, abandon all hope of fruition. It's like something out of The Wizard of Oz. Just turn back now. I love that so much, and I think it's become sort of a guide for me in my art making practice. In that the minute I start to think about where I'm going to arrive, or what the result is going to be, I know I'm in trouble. I know that I'm just then fabricating something to please, or to stun, or to overwhelm my audience, but I'm not actually learning anything from it. I'm not actually investigating anything. I think there's something about accepting that it's never what you planned, and it's never what you wanted it to be. It's never what you thought it would be. You've arrived at a place that's new and unfamiliar, and you can be curious about it and discover it and acknowledge that it's imperfect and still find some beauty in it. Or you can kind of jump over it and go, well, but that's not what I planned. I've got to get to what I planned. I've got to get to my preconceived idea of what this was going to be. And that's just death to art making, in my opinion. So, in a strange way, making something isn't about doing, but more about being with the small moments that arise, the complications, the little disturbing bits that don't seem to fit. And in that being with, having sort of a truthful response to what arises. And that's where art can come from. I'm going to read you a little something that I love. This is from Seeking the Heart of Wisdom, but it's actually a quote of Neruda. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead in winter and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. So I love that because I think, I teach in a university, which is very odd to teach art making in a university, but and it's Berkeley, so they're very smart students, and they just want to assert their brilliance all the time. They just want to do and do and do. And I have to kind of always be reminding them, maybe just listen to the first thing you did instead of doing 20 more things. So that's kind of what that's about for me. So I'll try to get a little more specific about how my practice works, again, this is residue from my former talk where they were very interested in that for some reason. I have this group of people, small, 6, 7 of us. We start on the floor, doing a gentle kind of loosening of the joints, very much a metta practice. Not so much about stretching or improving flexibility or strength, but more about noticing what's there without judging it as a negative if it's tight or constricted or inflamed or problematic. Just trying to bring a curiosity and a loving intention into the body. Now these are professional dancers and they're used to being pushed very hard. They have spent their careers pushing their bodies and having unreasonable demands placed on their bodies. So most people who come to work for me, there's a real learning curve. But once they understand that befriending the body in this way and noticing where it is without asking it to be better than it is, once they see that this will prepare them for a deeper kind of work, to go places physically without fear, because you're going there with the befriended body, right? Then they love it, and they need it, and they crave it, and they want it, and we can't rush a rehearsal. We always have to have that hour, and sometimes more, at the very beginning. I also teach this in a Saturday morning class, which I call Movement for Humans, which is just for people, not for dancers. It's very much the same process, this kind of metta in the body process. But the next thing that we do after this long physical and vocal kind of metta practice is we turn to a partner. And we try to do very simple things. Again, it's not massage, it's not corrective, and it's not assistance in the sense that somebody has knowledge that they're bringing to somebody else. It's just kind of being with each other in a shared space, noticing what you notice without words, a little bit of touch, a little bit of weight sharing. And it's very contemplative and slow, and it's really about kind of the beginnings of compassion. Not having an expectation of how your partner is supposed to touch you. Again, not having a point of arrival, not having a judgment about her back is really tight and she must be neurotic, but to just explore what's there and be in the moment with it. So as you can imagine, this is all very time consuming. We're halfway into a 5-hour rehearsal now, and we haven't done anything really. But that is the process, and I really believe in it. It's a way of building a kind of deep community, a kind of trusting environment where you can get very bold and very wild and feel like there's a landing place for that. And you can't, if you skipped it and you tried to get wild, it might be scary and dangerous. So I think it's important to know, and this is something we talk about a lot, in this little privileged little group. It's hard to give up that desire to be brilliant, to be surprising, to be funny, or to just be clever. It's really hard. It's really, for some reason, that's a persona we have in the world. That's who we identify as, especially again as artists. Those are the things we get paid to be. So to give them up it feels very vulnerable. It's really tricky. But the payoff is that once you kind of set that identity aside, other kinds of transferences can happen, where you're in this kind of groundless territory, where it's not me and you. I'm really feeling what you're feeling, just as much as I'm feeling what I'm feeling. We get in this kind of glorious place of mutuality that's pretty amazing. See if there's anything else interesting here on my many pages of large type. So I think it's this groundless thing that I want to talk. I want to leave a little bit of time here for questions, but also I want to do just a little bit of practice with you. I think that when it's working and all familiar kind of identities have been blurred and sort of set aside, and you have this groundless territory that you're in together, that's a place where real discovery can happen, real invention, real surprising things can emerge. And it's not directed by anyone. I call myself the director, but I'm not really directing much. I have another little quote I want to read for you. This is Pema Chodron on cultivating compassion. Just as nurturing our ability to love is a way of awakening bodhicitta, so also is nurturing our ability to feel compassion. Compassion, however, is more emotionally challenging than loving kindness because it involves the willingness to feel pain. It definitely requires the training of a warrior. For arousing compassion, the 19th century yogi Patrul Rinpoche suggests imagining beings in torment, an animal about to be slaughtered, a person awaiting execution. To make it more immediate, he recommends imagining ourselves in their place. Particularly painful is his image of a mother with no arms, watching as a raging river sweeps her child away. To contact the suffering of another being fully and directly is as painful as being in that woman's shoes. For most of us, even to consider such a thing is frightening. When we practice generating compassion, we can expect to experience our fear of pain. Compassion practice is daring. It involves learning to relax and allowing ourselves to move gently toward what scares us. The trick to doing this is to stay with emotional distress without tightening into aversion, to let fear soften us rather than harden into resistance. It can be difficult to even think about beings in torment, let alone to act on their behalf. Recognizing this, we begin with a practice that is fairly easy. We cultivate bravery through making aspirations. We make the wish that all beings, including ourselves and those we dislike, be free of suffering and the root of suffering. So that's only tangentially related to the art practice, but it is related in my mind. So I'm going to do a little something, if you'll bear with me. It's really just, you can do it right in your chair, on your cushion. It's really just the metta part of the art making. But it's a little more than that. It's also about using the power of intention. So taking an image and a physical action together and really letting your intention make those into something more. So we're just going to start by scrubbing with our fingers the sternum. We're going to do this a few times, so I just want you to get the feeling. And the intention here is to kind of wake up, unlock the heart center, where all the feelings are. And you don't know what you're going to get, happy or sad. You're just kind of cutting those fibers and cutting the cobwebs and unlocking it. So it's a good firm scrub. And then I just want to do the warming of the hands, like a Tai Chi thing, really warming the hands. And then here, the intention, take the palms out, close your eyes, and really think of opening the palms, but you're not sending out, you're taking in. Taking in sound, taking in energy. And then we're going to cover the chest, the heart center, like a blanket with these two big hands. Cover it, protect it, hold it in, cradle it. And while we're doing that, I just want to, with the eyes closed, just tilt the face up. And again, it's not a sending out, it's a taking in, whatever the sunlight is bringing to your face, to your breath, as you feel your heart, as you feel your chest rise and fall. So let's do all of that again. Let's do the whole thing with our eyes closed. So I'll talk you through it. We start with the scrub, scrubbing at the sternum, cutting the fibers, loosening, opening up possibility of feeling. Then the hands. Then palms, take it in. Then hold it, blanket it in your heart. And tip your face up. It's just for you, not for anybody else, not for sharing. One more time, just see if you can deepen your intention, deepen your possibilities with these simple actions. They don't have to be the words that I'm saying. Let the actions bring whatever they bring. So here we go with the scrub. Hands. Palms. Blanket. Tip the face. Good. So now I think we have a few minutes for chatting, for questions, thoughts.
You call yourself a performance troupe, which is different from a dance troupe, and that's because you bring so many different elements of voice and music and movement into what you're trying to express. And there always seems to be some sort of psychological movement or truth in what you try to portray in the performances that I've seen. And I'm just curious about what your process is in developing a piece, where you start and how you move on.
Well, I always like to start with a topic, a very loose kind of umbrella topic. And usually I have a mind towards my own queer sensibility and also looking at fallibility and the fragility of being human, how imperfect and troubled and messed up we are. So that's usually somehow in the topic. And then we generate material, but it's very, very wide open and often very tangentially related to that topic. And that's usually voice, songs, movement, partnering, character development, anything. And they're separate, discrete pools of material that we develop. Now, this process goes on for weeks, so it's a long process. We have no idea where it's going. And then there's the next phase is where we start to collide these pools. Because often when you have two very different pools of material and you ask them to exist together, they create this third unexpected thing that is even more powerful. For instance, I might have a pool of material where somebody is standing on somebody's chest and they're exploring obviously the discomfort of that, the pain of that, the dominant kind of gesture of that, all the ramifications of that. And then I might have a pool of material where somebody is saying, I love you, like you would say it to a child at night, right before they go to sleep. And they're turning that into a song, some kind of a lullaby that has all the tenderness of that moment. They've worked on that, they developed it. We call it felt material. You work on it until it's felt, until it's inhabited, until you can own it. So we have these two very different pools of material. And what happens if you put them together? What happens if the person who's being stood on is the one who's singing the song? I don't know the answer. That's the beauty of it. This keeps me honest. This part of the process keeps me honest because I talk about not wanting to know the answer. Well, when I do these collisions, I really don't know the answer. But we can all kind of feel it in the room. We can all feel it. Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful. That's important. We want to keep that. And then there's a kind of an editing, arcing. Is there some through line in all this material that keeps emerging that we want to, stick with? And then so it's about a 9 to 12 month process. So it's very slow. But it's really fun. So, yeah.
Oftentimes at a performance, someone will come out and make an announcement and say, enjoy the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering if you could talk to an audience before coming to a piece of yours about how to be as an audience. What is there something you would say about being an audience and being a participant from?
I think this is a trend that's happening more and more, is that people are becoming less satisfied with that separation of you're the audience and I'm the performer and you sit in your chair and I dance around in front of you. People are becoming less satisfied with that dynamic, and I think there are a lot of ways that we can subvert that. It could be by giving somebody a message as they enter the door, by holding their hand, asking them to travel with you through the performance, to not let them sit in their chairs. A lot of these things are things that I think about a lot and that I try to use whenever I can. Because anything that takes us out of that evaluative frame of mind, because it's not a very receptive place to be. And I feel like if we can ask people not to be there from the get-go, we can find a way to let them not be there, then they can have a different kind of experience and they can participate and they can feel like, it's an event that they're part of. Yeah, Amos.
So we know you're a meditator. You talked some about certain teachings from Buddhism that influenced your art making. Is there a way in which you use stillness in the ensemble work to source stories or inspiration?
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but it's not a conscious thing. I'm sure there is, but stillness is hard for dancers, and I think we tend to modify tempo of movement rather than just, if I tell them to be still, they get anxious. But if I can ask them to modify the tempo of a certain movement or discover it in a smaller kinesphere or even inside of the body with no external, but they're still moving, that they can relate to, that they can hook into. And that can be really effective. Yes?
Oh, hi, my name is Will. I've been here before, but my home is in Honolulu now. And I sang with the New York City Gay Men's Chorus, and appropriate to that, our assistant artistic director always used to say, music begins in silence, which I thought was a very wonderful way of centering everybody. Also, apropos to what was been saying recently, the Hawaii Symphony has been reorganized, and an hour before each concert, they open up, and the artists and conductors and so forth are there to have interchange. And about a month ago, James Galway was there, and it was really exciting to be and have him talk with the audience and get his feeling about his music, which he continued to say throughout the performance. The other thing he said earlier was something that reminded me of her long ago when my daughter's elementary music school teacher said to me, everyone is born with a rhythm to their life and a song in their heart that needs to be expressed. And it could be gardening or sculpting or writing or whatever. But we all have that passion. And that was just such a wonderful reminder to me because I've sung all my life. So that was a great thing to hear.
Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. Yeah, David.
Thank you for that Dharma talk. That was just, it really moved me. You touched on so many Dharma practices that you, not ideas, but practices that you've converted in your artistic process. One thing that I was reminded of is when you were talking about how, try not to anticipate the way things are going to be, is that the Buddha said, however you anticipate or plan, it shall always be other. And it's true for life as well as art, that as soon as we have an idea of the way things are going to turn out, we close the doors on all the other possibilities. And it's going to be other anyway, so why bother?
And it's totally possible to walk through life under this veil of sadness because it's other, because it's not what you expected. You can just walk around like that. I can walk around like that. And some of the practices that I've used in my art making have actually helped me lift that veil a little bit and not be so concerned with where I thought I should be or where I thought I was going. Roy?
Joe?
Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for today's talk. This is a Dharma talk that I was always hopeful that you would do one day. So I thank Jim Stewart for convincing me to come today to do it. And I also want to thank you for the exercise that you taught us, because I can't wait to use it like the next time I throw a dinner party and I'm all stressed out and create something and go to different recipes and oh my God, it's got to be perfect. I just felt so much peace when we did this exercise. So I that's one place that I could use it, but I'd like to use it at work and in other areas. So
people are going to call you strange if you do it at work. People are going to call you strange if you do it at work. That's okay.
Joe, Hush, last show I saw of yours. Is that a concept you have about, well, that's how I heard it, hush. Do you have that from the beginning, or does it emerge? The process of how you come. Well, the title, of course, doesn't. But yet, that's what I first think about, and then I have to get away, I guess, from thinking about it. But that's it attracts me. I wonder what's going to happen when we do Hush. Yeah.
Well, there was a super topic, which was the ways in which we are hushed,
Yes, that's what I meant, yes.
silenced, lost voice, So that was where we started. And who knows where we ended up, but that was the umbrella that we started underneath. And then as we develop material, you just hopefully listen to
The
it.
concept that you had from the beginning was sort of like the part that we pushed it away from.
Yeah, well, to some degree, because the ways in which we're hushed. I mean, a lot of it we do to ourselves, but yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes?
And it seems like a large part of what you're describing is a process of discovery, not knowing what's going to happen, not bringing in the editing of ego or whatever it takes in, if at all. I guess it has to have some part of the dialogue as well. And that's been, I've done some writing, and it's been helpful for me to find out what it is that I actually have to say. And the juxtapositions of different ideas sometimes can lead, like you're saying, to kind of use synthesis. Some development I hadn't really anticipated, so I really appreciate that.
There's this dreary kind of myth out there of the artist as somebody with a mad vision that he just has to fulfill. But that, and maybe that could happen once. But if you always approached every project as some thing that you had to fulfill, it's like giving a urine sample after a while. It's like you're just filling the cup of this thing, this beast, but there's no discovery there. I mean, you're flattering yourself is really all you're doing. You're not actually learning anything because you already know the answer in your mad vision, So I tend to stay away from that as much as possible. Jack?
Your talk just strikes me as really insightful about the connection between art and life, which is kind of an artificial distinction. Because what you've talked about is what everybody either does or should be doing, which is figuring out your life. What's the real thing? What's the is? What is the is at the center of things? Being surprised by it. And I guess the value of it is that you're conscious of it. And you're consciously focusing, because it's really easy to go through life unconsciously. To pay attention, which is exactly an overlap of meditation and even enlightenment, because just being awake to the way things are. And I just love that sort of illuminating connection between art and life. Maybe art is a heightened version of figuring out your life. Thanks.
One more comment?
I was wondering how you line up the music with the emotions and the movement.
I like to work with a composer who wants to be in the process. So we're, as we're developing material, he or she is contributing ideas or responding to things that they see in the very incremental stages of what we're doing, rather than he's off writing his opus and just brings it to us. But we're exchanging little increments along the way, and so it's developing with us in that year-long process. So that's a sort of a special person who wants to work that way, but managed to find a few.
I think we're about time over. Bruein, last question. Joe, I want to thank you for this wonderful topic.
Thank you.
I personally resonate. And we'd now ask, is there a host today?
I'm hosting today. Please stay and enjoy the fellowship of the sunset. There's hot water for tea and some things to enjoy. And if you have tea, please brush it up or possibly water. There's usually a sign up. I can see it. I'll try to find it if anybody wants to add their name to the email or host list. 12:30 at the front door. It's open to anybody who wants to join in.
Thanks. I've been asked to read this, and it's going to sound a little contradictory at the moment. This is about Donna. GBF asks for a weekly donation of $10 or more to meet our monthly expenses. This includes our rent, the speaker honorarium, newsletter production, and mailing costs, and the Larkin Street Youth Center dinner. If you wish to see an itemized breakdown of our monthly expenses, they are listed on a card that can be viewed on the table with other GBF literature. And as he said, the host will come around with the Donna Bowl, and we appreciate your continued support that sustains this wonderful Sangha. Are there any other announcements today?
One of my great joys in my life is that I'm part of a men's class in something called Interplay, which is kind of in the same domain as what Joe does. It's a weekly class for men, and we move together, make sounds, tones, create stories, and have fun and play. And it's very incrementally taught, and it's a wonderful supportive group of guys, and we're having a free introductory evening on Thursday, December 12th. I have some flyers and would be delighted to talk to anyone about it during the social time. Thanks.
I sing with the Oakland East Bay Gay Men's Chorus, and I put some cards out near the Donna Bowl. We are having a concert this weekend coming, Saturday and Sunday at Laney College in Oakland, and then the following Saturday at Clayton Presbyterian Church. So, thank you.
Anyone else have an announcement today? Okay. I'd like to remind everyone to welcome the newcomers and those who have had a long absence. And Joe, would you like to offer the bench? Could we gather in a circle? Hold hands. I forgot one announcement that I'm supposed to make, just to give you next week. I'm getting used to being a facilitator here. December 8th, Clint Lassiter.
Oh, him?
Clint Lassiter has been a longtime Sangha member in both GBF and the Green Gulch Zen Buddhist communities. During his involvement in these communities, he has been the lead muffin baker in Green Gulch for 25 years and the head of GBF's monthly Feed the Homeless dinners at Larkin Street Youth Center for over 20 years. Clint will discuss his involvement in engaged Buddhism in both these projects and how they have become an integral part of his Buddhist practice. Look forward to that. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.